Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm on with Professor Justin Robinson. He's from the UWI Five Islands campus, and they are getting ready for the annual AI conference, which opens on June 23. Let's jump into what's going to be happening at the conference. What can we expect? How are you building from last year's conference in what's happening next month?
So we are really very excited to go ahead with the second edition. We were the first conference really surpassed our expectations, and we are quite keen to take it forward. And the way we see the conference this time around is that the conference last year was a lot about building awareness. Whereas this year now we want to move from beyond awareness to implementation. So the goal of this conference is to provide conference participants with access to the latest AI tools so that persons are going to leave. So we have 7 core tracks: AI for climate resilience, which focuses on forecasting storms, managing
Are you
water,
planning to
optimizing
build,
energy
renovate, or
systems.
expand your property?
AI in
Turn your
healthcare
vision into reality
focuses
with
on
the trusted
diagnostics,
experts at
patient
D&N
engagement,
Detailed
and data
Finishings, your
sharing.
partner in
Ethical and responsible AI. How do you deploy AI without harm or bias? AI in education, really focusing on personalized learning, developing solutions. And again, workforce development, reskilling and upskilling in an AI driven economy. And our goal is that attendees will leave with toolkits, model policies, open source software links, connections to regional, international funding and collaboration opportunities so that they can actually implement a lot of what they would have been exposed to.
And last year, you had the conference for the first time last year, building out on it for this year. Have you seen any noticeable uh, gains and changes in the space when it comes to AI as a result of beginning this initiative last year?
Yes.
Are we
So,
further along? How further
yes,
along are we?
I think we are further along in terms of awareness. One of our disappointments last year is that we had a massive turnout at the conference, way beyond our expectations. In fact, we were very surprised that in the 76 years, UWI's been around for 76 years, and this was the biggest conference ever in the history of UWI. But the vast majority of participants, over 80%, were from outside the region. And we are making a special marketing push this year to have persons from the region take part in the conference as we now focus a lot more on implementation because we have 80 international AI experts who are going to be participating in this conference alongside some of our regional innovators. We a key feature for us, if you think might help address what you are talking about, is really what we call our innovation hall, that companies and institutions can showcase their AI solutions. And then people who have AI ideas, again, we have live pitch sessions to investors and so on. So we are very conscious of what you are speaking about, that we want to move beyond awareness to actual impact on the ground. And that is really the packaging of the conference this year. And we want a lot more regional participants. So we welcome the foreigners and we have a lot of them, but this is our backyard and this is where we want to make this impact.
Mm. And having said that, do you believe there is enough political will and even private sector interest in the Caribbean to invest in AI research and development? And if not, what do you think needs to be done or needs to change to get us there?
So I tend to approach this by, you want a coalition of the willing. So I think on the one hand, the firms in the Caribbean that are part of an international network, they're going to have AI deployed. And there's a lot of AI deployed. And if you go to bank at First Caribbean or anywhere, a lot of these insurance companies, there are AI tools operating there. AI tools are analyzing whether you qualify for a loan or not. So this is not some futuristic thing, the AI tools are here. Sometimes they're operating in the background. And I think that's important. AI is no longer a future concept, right? It is here now. What we want to showcase in this conference, we want our regional firms, our regional policymakers to come to the forum where we have 80 international experts, we have exhibitors so that they are exposed to the latest tools. Also, as a campus, we are trying to develop a distinctive competence in AI policy and ethical policy because sometimes that's what gets left behind. The people who are inventing AI and the chips, they're focused on getting bigger, better, faster chips. They are not really thinking about the downsides and what are the policy implications. We don't really have the money and the resources to say we're going to develop robots and all of these things. So the space we are trying to focus in on is AI policy. We've already worked as a campus doing draft policies for a couple of Caribbean governments, and we really want to expand on that.
Now, media and AI, because media plays an extremely important role in development, in democracy, and in a society. How do we use the tools that are available for AI? What kind of impact do you believe that AI can have on how media engages? And what are the challenges that you see there? What are the opportunities you see there?
So one of the main opportunities I see. So for example, let's say someone like yourself and you are getting ready for this interview, or there is a budget in Grenada and you're putting together a panel. What a lot of these AI tools will allow our reporters and others to do is to process a lot of background information about any topic that they're reporting on in a much faster manner. So I get a lot of requests from persons in the media, like when there are things like budget, economic matters, what does this term mean, and so on. I think these tools now put a lot of power in the reporter's hands. That your background research for whatever you're doing, it can be a lot deeper, but not require the same amount of time. So that when you are doing these programs, now you can ask a lot more probing questions because you've been able to do a much more thorough background research on the particular topic in an in a time frame that works for you. So I think it enhances your capacity to educate and inform your audience because you now have that same greater data access. And I see that as really the biggest opportunity, that information that was stored somewhere that you had to call an expert or a professor to give you that background, you can now, it's been a much more democratized.
So, and I like the idea that you can do, because research is so important when you're doing an interview,
Mhm.
you're doing a story, that you have all that background information so you can put
Exactly.
things in context. It can make sense as you pass it on to the consumers of the
Exactly.
information, that it's a lot clearer, because if you understand it, then you can message it on in with clarity.
And
Uh,
you see, and we have to use the tools carefully. What worries me is that persons of my generation and others who were very well educated can really maximize and get the most potential out of these tools. What worries me is because things are so easily accessible, persons might not take the time to become very well educated and then they can't get the most out of these tools. They really don't know how to optimize them. So people talk about chat GPT. If you're gonna get really good stuff out of chat GPT, you have to know enough. to be able to give good prompts.
Your prompts have to make sense. They have
I
to
don't know.
be able to, you need
So
to
if
ask
you
for
don't
what you
have
want. Yeah.
knowledge and education, you can't prompt. You're gonna ask some silly question or some very shallow thing, and then you can get a very shallow response. Or you don't know enough to see, that number look wrong, or that response they're giving me can't be right. So you actually have to know enough to get the most out of these tools. And sometimes I hear people say, "Oh, don't worry about that. The machine can do it." But then, if you just leave it to the machine will fool you, or you can't get the most out of the machine. You have to control the thing.
So at the end of the day, AI still, the successful use of AI still depends a lot on human capacity.
Exactly, exactly. Because it's not really intelligent. Maybe call. I mean, I don't like the term intelligence because it's not really intelligent. They. So
It,
for
it,
example,
it really is all the data that humans themselves have put out there, have researched and created and developed and put out there.
because
That
I was when ChatGPT came out, I was pro vice chancellor for undergrad studies at UWI, which is a body that does academic quality assurance for the entire U system, and everybody was panicking. So I really had to get familiar with it. And what really stood out to me that it was not intelligent is that as we were trying to understand this tool and how we minimize it being used for cheating, I think somebody on the team put in a question and the model said, but I can't respond because I'm only trained up to data up to July 31st, 2022 or something. It couldn't respond beyond that. It couldn't do it.
uh, so it wasn't so intelligent after all.
No, so it's not intelligent. It's what we pump into it.
Mm.
Now, and there's a kind of perverse intelligence which can be dangerous where if you keep prompting it and prompting, it might lie to you because it has to give an answer. It will try to give you an answer. And it will give you something. So, there's the famous case of a lawyer getting the wrong case being quoted. The case didn't exist. So, if you keep prompting and prompting,
I didn't hear about that. It just created a fictitious
yes,
case.
because it's going to pull and pull and give, it's going to try to give you an answer. So, again, if you do that and then you take that and the guy went to court and the case never existed.
That must have been embarrassing.
And there was a case with the Guardian newspaper in the UK. There was something, and the person said, report said, but I never wrote that story. And he was quoting something in the Guardian. And he said, but that was never written in our paper. But it because it will try to give you a response.
Mm. But how do you fix, because that seems to be a glitch to me, that if the response does not exist in data that is there, um, even if it is not factual information, but that the data that it exists, so you can get that as part of an answer. But to totally create, like a 5-year-old child telling tales, um,
Yeah.
some fake version just seems a little bit weird to me. Is that some sort of glitch that researchers are looking at fixing,
Yeah,
or
so,
this
so
is
yeah.
just how it is?
No, no. So persons are trying to fix those problems, but at the end of the day, that really is a user problem.
Mm, mm.
It really is a user because if you keep pushing, it is trained to give a response, and then you need to know enough that that response doesn't make sense.
So that guy really was not a very good lawyer because he did not know what were the proper prompts to put in to find a case that that,
Or you-
that he that he needed to take to court, as precedence for his his
but
matter.
also a sense of sloppiness because you shouldn't use the tool that way. That you should now go and check the cases. You
And
can't.
and,
So
and,
to me,
and,
that,
and once you get it on AI, because you have all this case law and all of these
exactly,
and so on, that you go back and you look in it, they have lots of books in their offices which have
because
things,
what the
those things
tool
in
is
them.
supposed to do for you is reduce your search time by telling you the cases in a much faster, but it should not be a substitute for you going and check the cases and using them to formulate your own argument, you see. So again, remember, you're using AI all the time. So if for example, people are typing, you're using Grammarly. it's correcting your grammar and spelling. We've been using spell check for a long time. These are all forms of AI. It's just that the thing is now going to a whole different level of capacity in terms of the computing power and the power really and complexity of the algorithms. It can really do a lot more than just spell check. I
Yeah.
mean, I have tried to tell you, I have tried, as I've said, okay, I've gone to, I think it's DeepSeek, and I said, please prepare an article on the Barbados budget written in the style of Justin Robinson. And so the intelligence level is that the tool can very quickly scan the internet, look at articles that I have written, figure out, come up with a sense of my writing style, and generate something. So it's a whole new level beyond spell check.
Mm. But but the right prompt, so then you get something that sounds like um, you're writing, and because you've put that information in there, that is in the
Yes, because
style of
because my
Justin
because I
Robertson.
have
So,
hundreds of articles out there, and it's figure.
and it's
So it's a whole new world that you have to be conscious of.
now, there's a question I really want to ask you. You know, we have this major problem with math and language in regional exams. Um, every year we talk about, oh, the math and the language is so bad and the children are not passing it. How do we use AI to identify what this regional problem is with math and language?
So one of the immediate uses we see for AI in this area is that math is a lot about practice. You really have to practice, and you have to understand some foundation concepts. You have to know how to multiply and divide and so on. And one of the things that separates people is that a percentage of our population is able to afford a lot of extra lessons to
Mm,
really teach people. Now, one of the real promises of AI is you can have very low cost or free math tutors available to everybody, so that now everybody can have access. Not everybody, but a much larger percentage can now have access to even generalized math tutoring on the different topics. Sometimes we know the things that give kids trouble, long division, logarithms, all of that. That there are now a lot of very low cost tools. So really, that's the low hanging fruit. I think we need to apply that. But going further than that now, as you go through these lessons, a lot of these tools, they are learning your learning style. Where does the person get stuck on these problems? What are the issues? And coming out of you going through these online tutoring, it's learning your learning style. And then there's a capacity now to develop a set of problems, examples, explanations that are suited to your learning style. Because as you do these exercises online, as you go through the modules, it picks up where you are having trouble. What sort of questions give you problems? Where is there the logical breakdown? This is where the intervention needs to be. And then there's the potential for that individualized solution to be crafted, which which doesn't happen in a big class. And if you go to lessons, the lessons teacher might not necessarily have that mindset either, because the lesson teacher has his or her teaching style. And a lot of lessons teacher like to select who come to them for lessons too. They only want bright people.
the only one bright people so that the results can look good.
Exactly.
That's a very human problem, nothing to do with AI there.
No, but see, but that's an interesting point. 'Cause you know what? One of the interesting things that is coming out in medicine is that the AI tools seem to be more empathetic and have a better bedside manner than the human doctors. That's very interesting.
Oh.
Very, very interesting and very surprising.
Because we know what empathy should be, but not all of us have the capacity for it. But we can train this this algorithm or
Yes,
whatever
exactly,
to get that textbook definition
exactly.
of it, and then have it you know pass
Be
that on
polite.
into
You know, you can be trained to be polite, be patient, etc., etc. And it's not bright. The machine doesn't have any intelligence, so it will do exactly what
it
you
will do
tell it
what
to
it
do.
will do exactly
Yes,
what you
yes.
say
So that's something
needs
that's
to be
come
done.
out in a
And the
big
machine
way.
never has a bad day. The machine's husband or
Exactly,
wife didn't cause
exactly.
problems the night before, so it's
Exactly. Same
always
thing.
emotionally balanced and stable.
Exactly. It has no emotions.
Yeah. Oh, it has no emotions. No, let me ask you about your personal vision for a Caribbean future shaped by AI. What does success look like for us, and how do we get there from where we are, which is a long way down?
So my view is that our small size is our superpower. In that, if you decide that you are going to deploy a set of AI math teaching and learning tools across the education system in any of the Eastern Caribbean islands, you can do that very quickly. You can do it much more easily than in a large space. So we face unique challenges. You know, we have limited economies of scale, resource conflict, but because of our small size, we can do something across the entire system in a very rapid manner. So, for example, in Barbados, the Barbados government has really decided to go on that renewable energy drive. They're offering no duties, no import duties on electric and hybrid. You just pay the value added tax. And one of my other hats, I serve as a director of the Central Bank of Barbados. And last year, something like 76% of the new vehicles imported into Barbados were either hybrid or electric. And that trend continues this year. So once we decide to do something, because of our small size, we can do it at scale in a very rapid manner. So my vision for the future is where the Caribbean, in a very comprehensive way, deploys a range of AI tools in our key areas of challenge. And I often like to frame it this way. You know, you can't do everything one time. My view is that our region is facing what I like to call a triple C crisis. You know, we have a crime crisis, we have the climate crisis, and the chronic non communicable disease crisis. And I would like to see us really deploy at scale a range of AI tools that allow us to more effectively manage these problems, which are really plaguing our society, and also provide our small and medium sized enterprises with some seriously enhanced productivity tools, because I think that is the sector that can really drive Caribbean development. If we can wrestle that triple C crisis to the ground and we can empower our small and medium sized enterprises, then I think we will see a Caribbean that we really can't that we can't imagine at this moment. So that's really my vision, where our small and medium sized enterprises are, are able to enhance their productivity in a way we can't manage, because we can't imagine now, because they have access to these very powerful low cost tools, and that we are using this technology at scale to address this triple C crisis.
Mm. And I imagine on the issue of crime as well, it would be so useful because it's data that can show us trends and causes and effects and so on, so that proper
Exactly.
responses can be mounted. As we close up the interview, Professor Robinson, just remind us again, June 23 to 25, Artificial Intelligence Annual Conference, where it's happening, and why we should try to outnumber the foreigners this year.
Yes, so again, June 23rd, 24th, 25th in lovely Antigua and Barbuda. The Antiguans and Barbudans allegedly have 365 beaches, so that's one reason to come across for the conference there. You can go online, UWI AI, UWI Five Islands AI Conference, and you can register at that particular link online. And what we aim for from this conference is that persons will leave the conference with a set of tools that they can then go back and apply to their personal life and their organizations, really with a view to enhancing productivity. So this is what I see AI is as the latest productivity tool that mankind has created. And it is one of our most powerful to date. And the Caribbean can't be left behind. And if you indulge me for 1 second, in my academic discipline, when we do economic and financial history, up until about 1600, many economies in the world were very similar to each other. China, India, other places. Europe was a backward place. Then you had the Industrial Revolution. And the most important event in our field is we call it the Great Separation. Europe industrialized and the rest of the world did not. And Europe just went way past everybody else. The Americans inherited that. So that great separation is the big event we see in economic history. The Caribbean can't afford another great separation. We can't afford to be left behind in this AI revolution because this is a revolution on the scale of the industrial revolution that led to the dominance of Europe and the United States for over 500 years. We can't afford another great separation. We have to get on this train early, maximize the upsides, and minimize the downsides.
And hopefully the conference will continue to build awareness and action. Professor Justin Robinson, thank you so much for joining me here on The Narrative. And may I suggest that if you're looking for nice beaches, a venue with nice beaches for your next conference, you have to come to Grenada, Professor.
Well,
Thank you
I
so
don't
much.
need any encouragement to have the conference in Grenada. So I'll
Next
be
year.
happy to come home. Grenada is my home. When I'm in Grenada, I'm a very happy man. I feel at home.
Next year, next year. Thank you so much, Professor. This
All right.
is The
Take care.
Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Farrier, speaking there with Professor Justin Robinson of the UWI Five Islands Campus. More when we come back.